Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast series. We have been talking to many project managers of late in this series. Today, we have a product manager with us, and we're going to speak with Mr. Anshuman Dash, who is a product manager at K15t in Germany. Anshuman has been in the field of software development for more than a decade now in different roles as a software programmer, and then now have moved into the software product manager role now. So hi Anshuman, welcome to the session and thanks for joining us and having this conversation with us.
Oh, hi Sujeet. Yeah, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I don't think I've really sat down with anybody and talked about my product management journey. So I'm a little nervous, but also I'm glad to be doing this.
Yeah, they're pretty much same here, and definitely. So main purpose of this podcast series has been to reach out to those aspiring young people who are trying to enter into the world of project management or product management, and then just give a glimpse of how the real world is when you enter in this world. So it's nice to have a person like you to share your experiences with us today. So to start with, Anshuman, I would like to ask, how has your journey as a product manager been so far in last, I believe 4 to 5 years so far, and how did it begin? How did you transition from programmer to product management role?
Right. I think this is a question that I've also asked myself in the past, what is my experience? And it might feel like my product management journey has been officially the last 4 years. Yes. But when I really think back, I think all the experiences that I've had so far, like you said, I have a decade. Damn, that sounds a lot. A decade-long career in software, and I think everywhere I've worked and in whatever role has somehow shaped my experience as a product manager. So I started out as a junior software developer, and I was in the development phase for a long time. Yes. And I think that really had a big impact on my product management experience so far. So I transitioned into product management almost 4 years ago. Okay. And how it began, I think, like for most product managers, accidentally. I actually didn't even know when I was here that a role like product management exists. It's still a relatively new sort of area, and a lot of companies are adopting it. So when I joined K15t back in 2017 November, actually just on November 1st I joined, so it's exactly 5 years 2 days ago. So I joined as a software development intern because that's what I had been doing. I was a software developer and I just finished my master's and I joined, and then I soon realized, as much as I love development, in general I love products more, but I soon realized I could be the best at a lot of things, but probably I won't be the best developer out there. I mean, even though I loved it, it just doesn't come naturally, and I was having that crisis of identity in my professional life. So around that time, the company, the K15t, was also sort of going through a transition, and the company was kind of looking for the next new product or next big thing to work on. And our CEO, Stefan, he decided that he wants to make it a little bit more in sort of self-managed, in the sense he wanted to solicit ideas from everybody. He just opened up that conversation and asked everyone, just share ideas of what we should be doing. And yeah, a lot of people put ideas. I also put down a lot of ideas, and then I went through a few processes, steps, and yeah, the idea that I had submitted sort of got picked up. And I was just I'm relatively new in the company, and I had this idea, I posted it, and I was yeah, probably someone experienced is going to work on it. And then Just on a lunch break, Stefan calls me into the kitchen and just asks me like if I would be interested in kind of, driving this. And I was like, obviously a lot of nervous and scared, but it was also very exciting because I did not know it. And that was the beginning of my product management journey, basically, from working on this product from sort of ground up. And here we are 4 years later.
Oh, that's great to know. And that's really an interesting journey, So, like you mentioned, accidentally you got involved into some ideation first and then got transitioned into this product management role.
Yeah.
So now after having worked for 5 years in the role, what are your thoughts? Like, do you enjoy, are you started enjoying this, new role, or you still crave for your previous role of developer and still want to go back to that thing?
Yes, this was also always a struggle in the beginning as well. But like I've said, I like a couple of years later, I told this to Stefan as well. Like, I think I found my calling in product management. Like I told, like, even though I really enjoyed development, at some point I knew this is not where I can be my best. But with product management and the opportunities that it provides, I just felt at home, as much as home you can feel in a role where there's a lot of uncertainty. But I enjoy every bit of it. From time to time, I do miss the sort of the tangibleness of development, where you have a problem to solve and you can just sit down, write the code, and it's in front of you. I really miss that, because with product management, it's mostly a long-term game you're playing, right? So I kind of managed that by just taking time out, because in the company we have some sort of a concept of like free innovation time. So I either use that, or I just on weekends I would just like sit down and try to tap into my development roots and like maybe create small apps or something, just to kind of get that out of my system, because it helps when you're working on something that's a long-term thing. It's also nice to have some sort of small short-term wins as well, and I think development does that for me.
Oh, that's it. So now, Anshuman, you are the person who has transitioned from being a developer yourself, and now you are working as a product manager. There are many people like me who have not worked as a developer, and we have directly transitioned into the product management role. So you must have come across those people as well. You must have worked with them as a colleague or as your product managers in the past, or project managers. So what difference does it make to have yourself worked as a programmers, and now you work with the programmers and actually driving their development, software development life cycle? So what the difference does that make to have your own experience working as a programmer previously?
Right. That's a great question. First of all, I want to say that with product management, it's a field which doesn't really it doesn't really matter what your background is, as long as you have sort of the right motivation and the right drive. It's such a open sort of field where even if you don't have technical background, you could be coming from like marketing, you could be coming from user research, you could have a completely different and non-technical background in your education as well. But it's all about sort of your mindset and the temperament and just the drive to work with products. You should just love product, right? So that's already a good place to start. Having said that, obviously certain skills are useful when you're starting out. And if you look at sort of the classic definition of product management, which I feel is valid, but it's still like a little bit outdated, it's a cross section between development, marketing, and UX, and in the middle is product management. It's still a rigid framework, but it is still valid to some point. So as a product manager, you don't have to be an expert in all of these fields,
Right.
But if you have one of these as your background, because for being a product manager, being sort of a T-shaped professional is highly required, right? So you could come in from like a development background, you could come in from a marketing background or UX background. It doesn't really matter, but it definitely kind of shapes the kind of product manager that you can grow into. And everybody brings something different to the table. Now, we have multiple products and I work with different product managers here. Like I said, I transitioned into product management as a developer. I have a colleague who transitioned into from a user researcher. I have another person who transitioned there into from marketing as well. So we have got our strengths.
Right.
And for me personally, I think just coming from a software development background really makes a lot of conversations easier.
Right.
I can share the similar vocabulary with the developers because that is an important conversation you're having on a day-to-day basis, and that becomes relatively easier. Not that it's absolutely essential.
Right.
To me, that becomes really essential, sort of important, because it also kind of shapes how you think and approach the product as well, which could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Absolutely.
But I think that common vocabulary that I get from my experience is really helpful.
Yeah, I really can relate to that, even though I'm not from the technical background, but that common vocabulary definitely helps. So especially when you are working on some technical aspects of your products, for example, some integrations and API integrations, when you go through those API documentation. So it really helps when you understand some nuances of those technical jargons, and you can shape your conversation with your engineering team in a very better way than a non-technical person. But definitely, as you mentioned, it's definitely not necessary to have that, but it's really good to have a skill. So, like we discussed earlier, your career so far have been a decade plus now. You must have worked on many projects in different roles, as a programmer, as a senior programmer, and now as a product manager. So any one particular project or product that you worked on has been your most favorite so far, and particular lifelong learnings that you got there because of which it is a most favorite thing for you?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, if I had to pick, it's an easy pick. It's my first product that I told you about. So the product was called, or is still called, Scroll Documents for Confluence, and it'll be always a special product or project, because obviously it was, for the lack of a better expression, it was kind of my baby in a way,
Right.
But it's also special because within a very short period of time, I got to learn a lot and hands-on. So I transitioned without having any idea of what product management is. So it was like a crash course or a master class in product management in that initial 1.5 years of kind of working on that product.
Okay.
So that would be my pick.
Great. So now, as you mentioned, that the product that you worked on was kind of your baby, because you kind of ideated that thing in the first place, and then it grown into a tangible product.
Yeah.
So definitely, that was the first time that you were working on a product as a product manager, or a person who is in charge of driving everything. But still, if you are starting on a new product or a new project for that matter, and from scratch, so any from your experiences so far, that key pitfalls that one should avoid in order to make the ride smooth?
Oh yes, and I speak from experience, because I've fallen into a lot of those pits and made a lot of those mistakes. Now that I think of it, when I look back, and I think some of the common pitfalls or things to avoid is usually, and that starts with my statement that it was my baby. And I think the first pitfall is, getting too attached to the product or the idea. I mean, you need obviously that relationship and that relationship to the vision and driving that product, but that can easily cloud your judgment. So it's a balanced sense of detachment is absolutely essential when you're working on a new product, maybe even a new project, because that can easily cloud your judgment in a lot of places. And as a product manager, you will face a lot of those pitfalls and things, but having that sort of sense of a controlled detachment is absolutely essential. The second one, I think as a product manager, what is absolutely essential is having trust in yourself. The confidence is absolutely essential, but that can easily turn into that it is my sole responsibility. And what that does is, it has the tendency to burn you out. It's, first of all, you have to have the acceptance that you don't know everything, and not everything is your responsibility. Yes, the success of the product is your responsibility, but you don't have to come up with all the ideas. You don't have to implement all the ideas. You have to trust your team and learn to delegate. I think this was one of the crucial sort of thing that I realized after sort of going through almost like a burnout, because it just felt too personal. Then the third important thing that I think we should avoid is, it's called different names. You can call it scope creep, which basically results in sort of your team turning into what's called like feature factory. A product is not just the summation of its features, right? You can shove 500 different features, but people are still not going to use your product. And when you're starting out a new product or even a project, this is very easy to do. So having like a clear objective, having a clear idea of what you're building, who you are building it for, and how much you need to build is an absolutely crucial thing to keep in mind before diving into a new product or even a project.
Okay, so actually my next question was based on that same topic that you brought up about the scope creep. Definitely, but so when you actually plan your releases, so you have some product roadmap for your next quarter or next 6 months or a year or so, and you decide on certain things that you will try to work on. But definitely when you actually begin the journey, there are some pitfalls, there are some scope creeps, and they are bound to happen. So sometimes there are some uncertain events, so which you cannot foresee, or your engineering team might not foresee some things, some technical difficulties which may arise in between. So when you are in that situation where you are not going to achieve what you planned for, and there could be some shortfalls, so how do you handle that situation, especially when you are this situation becomes more critical when you are reporting to someone outsider who is paying for your product, and he's a client and you are developing your product for that particular client, and they're definitely sometimes more demanding in nature and they don't accept such shortfalls. So how do you handle that situation?
Yes, that is a continuous learning process. I'm still in the process. Every day is a new learning experience. But I think when it comes to preventing sort of scope creep or handling a situation where you've fallen into pitfalls, I think a very underrated thing to do is to have compassion for yourself, for your team, and your customers, because no matter how well you plan, if you take the best project manager, product manager, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be missed deadlines, there's going to be pitfalls, right? That is something you just have to accept. But it's not just about accepting and just getting away with it, but obviously learning from it. So having that temperament of learning from that in different ways, you could do it you can look at it from like two sides. One is the proactive side of things and the reactive side of things. So reactive side of things is obviously like, doing retrospectives, doing postmortems, whatever your team rituals are, and having a safe space for your team members to kind of look at the problem and look at it objectively without any finger pointing. And this is easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of sort of the right kind of culture within the organization to enable this, and this helps incredibly a lot. So having that space and having like a good feedback culture is absolutely crucial to kind of keep getting better at avoiding these pitfalls. And proactive things, obviously, you can do is, like I said, having a very clear objective, having a clear goal, having a clear scope, and communicating that openly. Because what that does is, you could set up the scope within the team, and it's almost like when you set a personal goal for yourself. Like every end of the year, I'm like, okay, I need to exercise more, so I'll exercise, right? And if I keep that goal to myself, it's very easy to fall off the track. But if I communicate it, whether I do it, I share it with my friends, whether I share it with my family, or if I put it on social media, it's out there, and then there are people who care about you and will keep you on track some way or the other, right? So that is essential. So if you have set a goal or the scope for your team, share it with your stakeholders, share it with people within the organization, and be sort of accountable for it. So if you are not, then if you miss it, people will be there to hold you accountable for it, and hold you accountable in a healthy way, and not like finger pointing that you're bad at your job, but maybe we can help, kind of thing. And again, like I said, no matter how much you plan, there is still going to be uncertainty. So I think it's also crucial to leave room for embracing that uncertainty. Scope creep, and always asking, like, do we really need it? Does our customer really need it? And there is no science behind it. Like it's part, sort of, you can use any framework, but at the end, it just comes down to how much you understand your customer, and really asking this question, like, do we really need it? And then just being open and honest about communication. If something has happened, yes, there are customers who can be impatient, can be difficult. That's just part of the job. You just have to be compassionate. You have to understand their point of view, and just be honest with them, and no BS.
Great. That's such a great way to look at it, especially the compassion part that you mentioned. So now you mentioned about the stakeholders, right? So being a product manager, you are a person who is in the middle, who is, at the same time customer facing, external facing person, and at the same time you are also an internal facing person. So you are working with the internal stakeholders, like your engineering team, your QA team, sales team, marketing team, and you are also the person who is looking outward with your interacting with your customers, understanding their needs, their requirements. So communicating with so many stakeholders at the same time at different levels, how important it is according to you, and is there any particular formula that you follow to handle it effectively?
Yes. Again, this is one of those things that you learn something every day, but I think this is an important lesson. Stakeholder communication, I think, is an extremely crucial part of your job as a product manager. And there is no magic formula besides sort of just making mistakes and learning, and obviously learning from other people's mistakes or experiences, right? So the biggest lesson that I learned from my experience in this area of stakeholder communication is involving stakeholders as early in the process as possible. The stakeholders not only could be people who are going to use the product or the outcome of the project, in which case you should be talking to them. If you haven't, then you're doing your job wrong. But also there are people internally within the organization, could be your CTO, could be your CEO, could be anyone outside of the team, who have wealth of knowledge and experience as well. So involving them as early on in the process as possible, so always be open for feedback. And yes, it might seem like overwork, but I would rather put that extra effort and work and time in the beginning than knee deep in the product development process and in the life cycle and realizing we are completely off track. And this has happened with me personally, where we had to solve this one problem and we completely went down like a path which cost us a lot of time and energy and money and everything, only to realize it really didn't matter. I mean, it was a wastage of time, and it could have been avoided if we had actually talked to our stakeholders or involved them in the beginning. So being open about that and involving them as early in the process is an absolute key to stakeholder communication. And like I said, being transparent and open is very much required. And then also involving your stakeholders in retrospectives wherever you can. If you are holding team retrospectives or project retrospectives, involve those stakeholders. If you can get your clients or your customers in, that's great. If not, involve your sort of, I like to call them like internal, external stakeholders. So we try to do that. So when we have retrospectives, we try to invite people. We invite them. So what if we are working on a new feature, for example, a major feature for our product, we would create a pitch. It's like a one-pager that we have templates for that. We just fill in that pitch, and we call that process like a de-risking process. And in the de-risking process, we obviously know the problem that we are solving, and what we are proposing here is a solution. And that's where we talk to different kinds of stakeholder. We would talk to our CEO because he was involved in early phases of the product and has a wealth of experience. We would talk to our senior developers or CTOs, anyone within the company. We would even go and talk to like people in our operations department or in our legal department, because you never know, the best ideas come from different places. So that's in that de-risking phase before we even get to developing that product. Even before we design any kind of things, we go through this de-risking process and involve as many stakeholders as possible. And then we involve them in retrospectives, and then we have quarterly plannings and quarterly demos where stakeholders are invited to sort of see what we are doing and give their feedback as early in the process as possible.
Oh, that's great. So I learned a new term today, de-risking process. It's a nice framework to have. And definitely I will reach out to you if I need more about this.
Absolutely.
So Anshuman, I know being a product manager, not just the product manager, but any kind of manager who is at the helm of driving things around, you need a lot of personal management as well, right? You need to manage your time well. So any particular tool that you use to manage yourself, no matter what product or project you're working on?
Yes, it was also an easy pick. For me, the most powerful tool in my tool set is Confluence. I use it for everything. And that's also something that that I sort of fundamentally feel that a lot of times we spend a lot of time trying to find the best tool for ourselves. There are so many tools and everything outside that we want to find the best tool out there, which is not wrong. But my approach to sort of keeping track of myself is just looking at things that I have at hand. I don't need to have like the best tool. Confluence is such a tool that's so flexible that you can use it for almost everything. and it's open, it's collaborative. So I can pull in my team members, I can create whatever from like recording an idea to planning my day to creating these product pitches to managing features. It pretty much does everything. So that's why I would say Confluence is my tool of choice.
Great. So you mentioned earlier the product that you are working on is also based on Confluence, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So do you want to speak more about that? What that product is really about?
Yeah, I mean, as an organization, we have apps for Confluence and one app for Jira, but most of our apps are on Confluence. So the product portfolio that I'm currently focusing on is called the Scroll apps. It's the brand, the product group is called Scroll. And it is basically a solution for knowledge sharing and knowledge management, basically. So it one of the use cases is you can turn Confluence into a documentation solution. If you have product documentation, you can author that in Confluence, you can collaborate there, you can create versions, translations, variants, and all of that and within Confluence, and then you're able to have this sort of single source publishing where you can then take this content and publish it to a online knowledge base or a help center or into PDF files, Word files, HTML files. So it's kind of a complete solution for knowledge sharing. And the other product that we are focusing on is called Orderly Databases. And what it does, it brings this idea of sort of native databases into Confluence, which kind of then enables you to keep your things, as the name suggests, in order, because Confluence is very flexible. And if you're not careful about it, very soon it can become chaotic and like things can fall off the table. And that's why we want to kind of help teams who are starting out with Confluence or have been using for a long time to control that chaos by introducing this databases where people can organize all of their information within Confluence natively. Okay,
that sounds great. So we at Amoeboids also we are a Platinum Marketplace partner with Jira. And we also have a bunch of apps live in the marketplace. So I generally like to explore many apps on the marketplace. I will definitely have a look at it. So Anshuman, I know towards the end of this session, the last question that I would like to ask you about is, of course, we touched upon many skills that as a product manager, it helps. But definitely, any one particular most crucial, according to you, a skill which a person should have if they want to pursue career in product management?
Yes, I have two most, and I think they are underrated. I mean, there are obviously the hard skills, but I think that is something that people can learn. But if you are getting into product management, I think one of the most crucial things and underrated is compassion. You need to have compassion for customers, your team members and stakeholders, and most importantly for yourself. Because it is very easy to get overwhelmed within this field because there's a lot of uncertainty and you might not have answer to all. And that is my second important skill that I think everyone should have who thinks of a career in product management, is being comfortable with uncertainty. If you are an individual who needs a sense of certainty and a checklist of things to go through, it can feel very, very overwhelming. So I would say compassion and being comfortable with uncertainty are crucial skills or qualities that I think people should have if you're considering transitioning into product management.
Oh, that's great. I think I can myself on personal level can relate to the compassion part of this, because I have learned that hard way in my career. So many people, there is a lot of theory around product management, what product management is in the market, and many people talk about many frameworks and the processes that one should follow. But at the end of the day, it's more about people management. You are surrounded by stakeholders who are at the end of the day are persons, humans, and you have to manage them day in, day out. And compassion definitely helps to sail you through those, difficult times, especially.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate to that. So thank you so much, Anshuman, for sharing such an insightful, experiences, which, definitely helpful for anyone who's aspiring to become a product manager. They can definitely learn from this. So thanks again for giving us this time. Do you want to have any closing remarks?
No, I just wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity and making me actually sit down and reflect on these questions, because yeah, I think that is an important thing, that's part of that compassion that you should have for yourself, that just reflect back and just see how much you've learned or what mistakes you've done and how you've grown as an individual. I think your interview and the questions that you've asked really inspired me to do that. So thanks to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much. So here we are at the end of our session. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Stay tuned for more such sessions, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also follow us on LinkedIn. Amoeboids is a platinum marketplace partner for Jira, and we have a bunch of apps live in Jira marketplace. So you can definitely follow us for updates on those apps, as well as next episodes of this podcast series on YouTube and LinkedIn. Thank you so much.